long ago, before the world was divided by maps and borders, there stood the ancient Kingdom of Elyndor, a land of mountains that gleamed with ore, rivers that whispered secrets of time, and skies that burned red each evening as if forged in flame. Elyndor was a kingdom built upon iron and fire. Its people were craftsmen, armorers, builders of blades and legends. Every noble house had its scholars, but every village had its forge. Because in Elyndor, the sound of hammer on steel was the heartbeat of the nation. And at the edge of that kingdom, tucked between the gray cliffs and a sleepy river, lay a small village named Brendel. It smelled of coal, sweat, and pine smoke, a humble scent that meant work was being done. Among the villagers lived a man named Rowan, the blacksmith of Brendel, known across the valley for his iron discipline and unmatched skill. His hands were scarred, his shoulders broad, and his eyes always fixed on the flame. And Rowan had a son, Liam. Liam was 12 when the story began, slender, quiet, with eyes too kind for a world that valued strength. He was his father's only child, and though Rowan loved him, disappointment often lingered behind his silence. Every morning before sunrise, Rowan struck the anvil 3 times to wake the forge. The clang echoed through the hills, and Liam would stumble from bed, rubbing ash from his hair. "Fire waits for no one, boy," his father would say without turning. "If the iron cools, it's wasted." "Yes, father," Liam would answer, his voice small under the roar of flame. But no matter how hard he tried, he was always a step too slow, the bellows too weak, the hammer too heavy, the timing always wrong. While other apprentices shaped perfect blades, Liam's bent at the edges, cracked at the spine, or shattered under the first strike. "Careless again," Rowan would mutter, shaking his head. "You can't even hold the hammer steady." The other boys at the forge snickered. One of them, Darian, Rowan's senior apprentice, leaned close and whispered with a grin, "Maybe you're better off sweeping the ashes, Liam. Leave the steel to those born for it." Liam said nothing. He only nodded, eyes cast down, and went back to stoking the fire, his hands trembling slightly. Weeks passed. Summer melted into autumn, and still Liam could not master even the simplest shape. Rowan tried patience and anger, then silence. One evening, after the others had gone home, Rowan placed a small lump of glowing steel on the anvil. The workshop was filled with a low red light, shadows dancing on the walls. "Strike it," Rowan said. Liam swallowed hard and lifted the hammer. He struck once. The sound was weak. Again, it slipped sideways, barely glancing the metal. The third blow missed entirely, scraping the edge of the anvil. Rowan's voice thundered through the forge. "You're not made for this, boy. I've tried everything. You have no rhythm, no strength, no fire in your blood." "I'm trying, father," Liam whispered. "Trying is not enough," Rowan cut him off. "Elyndor's sons are born to forge. You're not one of them." The words struck harder than any hammer. Rowan turned away, his shadow long against the wall. "Go home. I'll finish this alone." Liam stood there for a moment, then nodded quietly. Outside, the night air felt cold and endless. He walked home under the pale moonlight, the clang of his father's hammer fading behind him. Every winter, the capital city of Elyndor held the Festival of Flames, a grand competition where the best smiths presented their masterpieces before the king. Winning brought not just glory, but a royal seal, the mark of a master craftsman. Rowan had been chosen to represent their village that year. He prepared day and night, forging a blade fit for the king's army. Darian assisted him, his every move efficient and sharp. Liam, though unwanted, still lingered in the shadows, sweeping floors, fetching water, and watching. His eyes followed every movement, the way his father turned the tongs, the color of the steel when it was ready, the rhythm between strike and breath. He burned those images into his mind. One night, when the others had gone, he picked up the hammer again. Alone with the forge, he whispered to himself, "Maybe I can still learn, if I don't stop trying." He reheated a piece of scrap metal and began to strike. The first blow was off-center, the next too soft, but he kept going. Clang, clang, clang. Each sound echoed through the silent night. He lost track of time until the fire dimmed and his arms ached. The next morning, he hid the crooked piece behind the coal barrels. He did this every night, failing, trying, failing again. On the eve of the festival, Rowan discovered the hidden scraps, dozens of them bent and broken. His face turned red with anger. "You've been wasting my coal and iron," he shouted. "Do you have any idea what those cost?" Liam's voice trembled. "I just wanted to learn, Father." Rowan slammed his fist on the anvil. "You learn by obeying, not by ruining. Enough. You'll not touch this forge again." The words were final. Liam's chest tightened, as if the forge fire itself had gone cold inside him. He ran out, tears mixing with soot on his face, and didn't stop until the village was far behind. He climbed the northern hill overlooking Brendel. From there, he could see the faint orange glow of the forge in the distance, the heart of his world, now closed to him. He sat beneath the great oak tree and whispered, "I'm not like them. Maybe Father was right. Maybe I'm not meant to forge anything." The wind rustled the leaves, and the world felt unbearably quiet. As dawn broke, Liam wandered toward the river. There, beside the water, an old man was sitting, thin, gray-bearded, with a cane carved like a serpent. He was watching the flow of the stream, his eyes sharp despite his age. The man turned and said gently, "You look like someone who's lost his fire." Liam froze. "Who are you?" "Just a traveler," the man replied, smiling faintly. "But I've seen that look before, the eyes of one who's been told he cannot become what he dreams." Liam's lips trembled. "I've tried everything. My father says I'll never be a smith. He's right. I can't make anything right." The old man pointed to the river. "Do you see that stone beneath the water?" Liam nodded. The rock was smooth and curved, its surface shining under the morning light. "When I was your age," the old man said, "I asked how such hard stones become soft and round. My teacher told me, it is not the water's strength, but its persistence. Drop by drop, year after year." Liam looked again at the river, watching how the water flowed endlessly over the rock. The meaning struck him deep. "So if the water can shape stone," he whispered, "then I can shape myself." The old man smiled wider. "Now you see, the fire outside you means nothing if the fire within you dies." Before Liam could ask his name, the old man stood and began walking away along the river path. When Liam turned again, he was gone, as if the morning mist had swallowed him. Liam returned to Brendel that evening. The forge was silent, The festival had already begun in the capital, and his father and Darian had left. No one was there to stop him. He cleaned the ashes, stacked new coal, and lit the fire once more. Drop by drop, he murmured, strike by strike. He worked through the night. The hammer rang out like a heartbeat. Every mistake became a lesson, every burn a teacher. He studied the rhythm of heat and time until dawn painted the forge walls gold. For the first time, the metal obeyed him. It bent, it shaped, imperfectly, but willingly. Liam smiled faintly through the sweat and soot. "I'll keep at it," he whispered, "until the fire answers me." Weeks passed. When Rowan returned from the capital, exhausted and proud with his silver medal from the king, he found Liam still at the forge. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. Liam didn't flinch. He turned the steel in the fire and said calmly, "I'm learning, Father." Rowan opened his mouth to scold him, but then stopped. There was something in the boy's eyes, steady, focused, alive. For the first time, his son didn't look like smoke, he looked like flame. "Then learn," Rowan said quietly, and walked away. From that day, Liam worked without needing to be told. He studied every detail, how the iron changed color, how sound revealed shape, how patience made steel sing. He failed 100 times, but he no longer feared failure, because he knew what the old man by the river had meant. The water never quits, and neither should the fire. 2 years passed. The boy who once trembled before the anvil had grown into a young man. His arms carried the memory of 1,000 strikes. His palms were lined with quiet burns that no longer hurt. The forge in Brendel never slept anymore because Liam refused to let it. One morning, a royal messenger rode into the village, his cloak bright crimson with the seal of the crown. He dismounted before Rowan's shop, unrolling a parchment. "By order of His Majesty King Aldrich," the man announced, "a summons is extended to every blacksmith of Elyndor. The kingdom seeks a master armorer for the royal guard. Those who prove worthy shall be granted gold, title, and eternal honor." Rowan's eyes gleamed with ambition, Darian's with hunger, but Liam's heart beat faster, not for gold nor title, but for the chance to prove he was no longer the boy of smoke. Rowan hesitated. "You'll stay and tend the forge," he said firmly. "You're not ready for the capital." Liam wiped the soot from his hands. "Father," he said quietly, "if fire waits for no one, why should I?" Rowan looked into his son's eyes and found something unbreakable there, the same stubborn glow that once lived in his own youth. After a long pause, he sighed. "Then pack your hammer. Let the capital judge your steel." The journey took 5 days. The road wound through valleys and markets buzzing with travelers bound for the same destiny. When Liam finally saw the golden city of Elyndor, the capital, his breath caught. The city was a labyrinth of shining towers and clattering workshops. Sparks flew from every corner. The air smelled of molten dreams. Inside the royal foundry, hundreds of forges roared. Masters and apprentices from every province worked under the watch of the king's inspectors. Each participant had 3 days to forge a blade worthy of the crown. Rowan sat up beside Darian. Liam took the farthest corner, where the light was dim and the air colder. When Darian saw him unpack his simple tools, he laughed. "You came all this way to embarrass yourself again? Stay out of my way, country boy." Liam met his rival's gaze, steady as cooled steel. Let the fire decide. On the first day, the hall echoed with hammer strikes, some graceful as music, others desperate as thunder. Liam worked alone. measured and quiet. He chose not to rush. While others raced to shape their blades, he studied the ore, feeling its grain beneath his fingertips. "Too slow," a judge murmured as he passed. But Liam didn't hear. He was listening to something else, the whisper of the forge, the memory of the river, the rhythm of patience that had shaped him. By sunset, his anvil sang in perfect time. Rowan watched from afar, pride and fear warring inside him. He dared not speak, he only nodded once, unseen. That night, when the hole was dark, Darian crept toward Liam's forge. Jealousy burned hotter than any flame. He loosened the clamps that held Liam's cooling blade, then smeared it with damp clay, enough to make the metal crack under heat the next day. Morning came. Liam relit his forge, unaware. As he reheated the blade, a faint hiss echoed, the sound of water trapped in the clay. Then came a sudden snap. Half the blade broke clean off. Gasps rippled through the hall. One judge shook his head. "Faulty tempering," he declared. "Disqualified." Darian smirked, hiding his guilt. Rowan clenched his fists, ready to protest, but Liam raised a hand. "Please," he said softly, "give me one more piece of iron. I will start again." The judges exchanged doubtful glances. One of them, a woman with silver hair and eyes like frost, spoke. "The trial ends at sundown. You have until then." Liam bowed. "That is enough." He began anew. Every strike echoed his heartbeat. He did not rush, did not curse his fate. When his arms weakened, he remembered the river shaping stone. When doubt whispered, he heard the old man's voice. The fire outside you means nothing if the fire within you dies. The hall grew hotter. Sparks burst like stars around him. The judges watched in silence as the boy worked with relentless rhythm, unbroken and calm. Hours passed. When he finally quenched the blade, steam roared upward like a living spirit. He held it aloft, its edge catching the light, a single flawless line from hilt to tip. Even the skeptical judge leaned forward. "How did you finish in time?" Liam smiled faintly. "The fire and I have been speaking for years." By royal decree, each blade would be tested by the Knight Commander himself. The soldiers brought a massive block of obsidian, the hardest stone known in Elyndor. Each sword would strike once. If it shattered, the smith was disqualified. Darian stepped forward first. His blade gleamed with arrogance. He swung with pride. Crack! The edge chipped, sparks scattered. The crowd murmured. Then came Rowan. His sword held, though faint cracks spread along its surface. Respectful applause followed. Finally, Liam approached. His blade, plain and unadorned, looked almost humble. He took a breath and swung. The sound that followed silenced the hall. Thum! The stone split clean in two. Liam's sword remained whole, glowing faintly red from impact. The Knight Commander turned to the judges. "This blade, it breathes." That evening, Liam was summoned before King Aldrich the Just. The throne room glowed with torchlight, banners swaying like tongues of fire. The king studied the young man who knelt before him. "You forged the only blade that endured," said Aldrich. "Tell me, what secret did you use? What metal? What sorcery?" Liam raised his eyes. "No sorcery, Your Majesty, only patience." The king smiled. "Patience cannot split stone." Then perhaps it was not the blade that split it, sire, Liam said quietly. Perhaps it was the years I spent breaking before I learned how not to. The hall fell silent. The king's expression softened. Rise, Liam of Brendel. You shall serve as royal apprentice armorer of Elyndor. Rowan bowed deeply, tears burning behind his stern eyes. And in the crowd, unseen, a hooded figure smiled, the old wanderer by the river, fading once more into legend. But peace never lingers long beside greatness. In the months that followed, Liam's fame grew. He forged armor that bent but never broke, swords that sang in battle. Knights from distant realms came seeking his craft. And Darien watched from the shadows, bitterness corroding his soul. He whispered among courtiers, spreading tales that the blacksmith's son used forbidden alchemy, that his forge drew power from dark spirits. One night, as Liam worked late, guards burst into his chamber. "In the king's name," they shouted, "you are charged with deceit and heresy." Rowan rushed in, furious. "On what proof?" "The whispers of the court," the captain said coldly. "He will stand trial at dawn." Liam said nothing. He only looked at his calloused hands, hands that had done nothing but labor, and whispered, "So even truth must be tested again."
At sunrise, the courtyard filled with nobles and smiths. The king sat upon a dais, grim-faced. "Liam of Brendel," he declared, "they say you summoned spirits to shape your steel. If you are innocent, prove it. Forge before us a blade of equal strength, without aid, without tools of your choosing. You have until sunset." The crowd buzzed. No forge, no bellows, no familiar anvil. Only bare iron and a single hammer lay before him. Darien smirked from the sidelines. "Let's see the water shape stone again," he muttered. Liam bowed to the king and said, "Then let this day be my truest trial." He lit the coals himself, fanning them with his breath, feeding them with scraps of wood. The air filled with heat and doubt. As he struck, blisters bloomed on his hands. Each blow echoed against the walls of the palace. Clang, clang, clang. When the sun touched the western spires, he quenched the metal in a basin of water brought from the royal well. The blade shone, pure, perfect, alive. The captain who had arrested him tested it against the same block of obsidian. Again, the stone split. Again, the sword remained unbroken. The crowd erupted. Darien paled. The king stood and declared, "Let every man remember, truth, like steel, grows stronger when it is beaten."
That night, as the fires dimmed, Rowan placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You've surpassed me, Liam. Not because your blade is stronger, but because your spirit is." Liam smiled. "You taught me to strike, but the world taught me when not to stop." Rowan nodded slowly. "And that is the mark of a true smith." Outside, snow began to fall, the flakes melting as they touched the forge's warm roof. Liam looked into the fire and whispered, "Thank you, old man by the river, wherever you are." The flames flickered as if answering. A year of peace followed Liam's vindication. Under his guidance, the royal armory glowed brighter than ever before.
Blades sang truer, armor fit lighter, and the soldiers of Elyndor marched with pride. But beyond the borders, a dark wind rose. The northern clans, driven by hunger and vengeance, crossed the mountains, burning every village they touched. When word reached the capital, the bells of Elyndor tolled, deep and mournful. King Aldrich gathered his council. "We will not yield," he declared. "Our walls may be stone, but our strength is forged in fire." Then he turned to Liam, "Smith of Elyndor, can your forge create something that will turn the tide?" Liam bowed. "I can forge steel, Your Majesty," he said, "but victory comes from hearts that will not break." The king smiled faintly. "Then forge me a symbol, a weapon that reminds men what they fight for." For 7 nights, Liam worked without sleep. He melted iron from the shields of fallen soldiers, mixing sorrow and courage into the same fire. He quenched it not in water, but in oil scented with rosewood, the smell of home, so every warrior who carried it would remember why he fought. When it was finished, the blade gleamed like dawn after endless darkness. He named it Ore Solis, the sun within. Rowan watched silently as his son wrapped the sword in linen. "You've poured your soul into it." Liam nodded. "If it must cut, let it cut despair." The next morning, King Aldrich held Ore Solis before the army. "Behold," he said, "the fire that will not die." 1,000 voices roared in answer, and so began the Siege of High Ridge, the greatest battle in Elyndor's history.
Snow fell thick as ash. The enemy surrounded the mountain keep, their torches a red ring in the night. Liam had come to repair armor and blades, but soon he found himself fighting beside the soldiers he served. When the walls cracked and the gates splintered, he carried Ore Solis to the front line. The king himself fought there, his crown hidden beneath a dented helm. "Stay behind the walls!" Rowan shouted from the forge yard. But Liam shook his head. "A blade means nothing unless it stands with those who hold it." The clangor of battle thundered through the valley. Liam parried, swung, fell, rose again. Each strike sang with the rhythm he had learned long ago, the rhythm of the anvil. At dawn, the enemy broke through. Rowan saw his son surrounded and ran forward, hammer in hand. "Liam!" he cried. A spear flashed. The old man fell. Liam dropped to his knees beside his father. Rowan's breath came shallow, smoke curling from his lips like the last whisper of a dying forge. "Don't stop striking," the old man murmured. His hand, blackened with soot, touched Liam's cheek once, then went still. Something inside Liam ignited. He rose slowly, eyes blazing brighter than the fire around him. He lifted Ore Solis high, its blade catching the first light of morning. "To the gate," he shouted, "for Elyndor, for every hand that forged and fell." The soldiers rallied. The enemy faltered beneath the storm of renewed fury. By noon, the northern banners were burning. By dusk, the field was silent, except for the hiss of snow melting on steel. The war was won, but the cost was heavy. Rowan was laid to rest beneath the great oak on the hill above Brendel, the same tree where Liam had once sat in shame. On the stone above his grave, Liam carved 4 words with his own chisel. "Fire waits for no one." The king offered Liam gold, land, and title. He refused them all. Give them to the widows and the orphans, he said. I already have what I sought. And what is that? Asked Aldrich. Liam looked toward the forge's smoke curling into the cold sky. Peace. Inside the fire. Years turned like the wheels of a bellows. The boy who once could not strike straight became the master whose name was taught to every apprentice. He rebuilt Brendel's forge, opening it to any who wished to learn. When young smiths grew frustrated, he would lead them to the river and point to the stones worn smooth beneath the current. See how the water never rests, he'd say. That's what makes it mighty. Among his students was a girl named Arya, bright-eyed and fearless. One evening she asked, Master Liam, is it true that the king himself once called you the man of unbreakable flame? He chuckled. No, child. He only said my fire never died. But I think he was talking about all of us.
When Liam grew old, his hands stiffened and his hammer grew heavy. He spent his final night in the forge, watching the coals burn low. The world outside had changed. New cities, new kings, but the sound of steel striking steel was still the same heartbeat of Elyndor. He whispered to the flames, You've been my teacher, my trial, my friend. The fire flared once, bright and gentle, as if in reply. When the apprentices found him the next morning, he was seated before the anvil, a faint smile on his face, the forge still warm. They say that when they quenched his hammer for the last time, the water hissed and glowed, not from heat, but from light. Generations later, travelers passing through Brendel still hear the faint ring of a hammer at dusk. They say it's the spirit of the blacksmith's son, teaching the world one strike at a time that greatness isn't born in power, but in perseverance. And somewhere by the river that shaped the stone, the water still flows, drop by drop, forever. Because the fire that truly matters never lives in the forge, it lives in the hearts that refuse to stop burning.